Hello, welcome to Actual Spinster. My name is Anna Marie. The subject of today's video is the mid-year book free cat tag, but I'm not going to do all of the questions, and I am going to also talk, I think, in general about my goals so far this year. I feel like this is probably a little belated that I'm doing this, but I wasn't sure if I was going to, and then I decided I will, but I also feel like, you know, when I went to look and see what I had rated the highest this year, or what could be my best book of the year and stuff, there were only 3 options that had gotten 5 stars, and I think there's maybe 5 if you include 4.5 books. And I feel like that does kind of demonstrate the kind of reading that I've been doing. Also, I think one of those 5-star books is a reread, which I don't really count in these, especially when it's a Tiffany Aching book, which I reread on the reg. Although it is an excellent book. It's I Shall Wear Midnight. Anyway, but then I decided it might still be nice to kind of have a chat about my reading so far this year. It is into July now that I'm filming this, and also when you'll see it, but I won't be including anything that I've read in July as answers to the questions, because that's over 6 months into the year, if that makes sense. So the first question is best book you've read so far this year. I think one is Heavyweight, A Family Story of the Holocaust, Empire and Memory by Solomon J. Brager. I read this a few months ago. It's a really fantastic graphic novel. I actually saw that Sophie Lewis has written a review of it in Lux magazine, which I started reading but I haven't finished, but I want to read because I think it will be a really lovely, thoughtful perspective on this book. And yeah, so this is a graphic memoir that explores Solomon J. Brager's family history in terms of the Holocaust, and also in terms of one particular ancestor who was a boxer. And yeah, it's a really excellent engagement with oral history, some of the pitfalls of that, also what it means to be entangled up in your kind of traumatic kin's life experiences, whilst also trying to engage with them in a non-decontextualized way, especially thinking about contemporary struggles for justice in America, which is sort of where it ends up, and also because Solomon J. Brager is an American living in America. Yeah, it's just it does history well, it does the family story well. I think it's really, really good. If you are looking to learn more about the Holocaust in general, then I would really recommend this as a way in, because it both engages with one particular family story, and it also tells a wider story. I do think if you're only reading this about the Holocaust, you should read other stuff and think about other aspects, because it's one person's, it's one family history. What I like is that it maintains the logic that it holds about survival in terms of the Holocaust, and also applies those ethics to today in a really powerful way, I think, generally. I think the other book, I was going to talk about 2 or 3 more, but I think the other book that I would include, even though I don't think I gave it 5 stars ultimately, but I did love it so much, and that was Milk Fed by Melissa Broder. I don't think this is a 5-star book, but it was one of the best books I read this year so far. I just loved what it had to say and how it was playful and joyful and beautiful about fatness and eating. And it, it's difficult, it's gross, it's complicated, but it's also really fundamentally wedded to the joy of living life in your body, eating, desire, appetite, all on the side of that, which I think most people should be on the side of. Everybody's oh, I really want another slice of cake, but I couldn't allow myself to have that. And it's just have the fucking slice of cake. I think, it's also a really nice book about freedom from parental control and remediating your relationship to your family or parent, or particularly in this case mother. And I also loved its exploration of Jewish practices and Jewish ways of eating and living. And yes, I just loved it. There's some Golem stuff too, so I was obviously gonna love it. I made a whole video about that book, so I will link it in the description box. I do think maybe another shout out should be for My Great Arab Melancholy by Lamia Ziadeh, translated by Emma Ramadan, which is a book that I have now relent out. But yeah, I didn't give this book 5 stars, but I thought it was a really excellent book and I would really recommend it. I talked about it in my June wrap-up, so I'll leave that too if you want to hear more about it. It's a non-fiction graphic. Oh, it's also graphic memoir, graphic non-fiction. Honestly, I think when graphic non-fiction is done well, it's really excellent. And I think it can be so politically transformative and just genuinely educational, whilst also not being difficult to pass. So yeah. Anyway, the next question is best sequel you've read so far this year. And honestly, I don't really think I have a proper answer for this. I read in more like the first 4 months of the year or something, quite a few Lemony Snicket books because I'm reading the series with my friend Mari. And so I guess I would pick The Slippery Slope as maybe the best out of those. I can't actually remember it that much, but I did give it quite a high rating. And yeah, that was okay and solid. We're getting to like the end of that series and I would like to really finish it in the latter part of this year. But yeah, I think in The Slippery Slope you do also get a bunch of answers that's really great to get and like stuff like that, if I'm remembering the right one. Obviously part of the sort of somewhat formulaic part of them means sometimes they blend together very easily. The next question is like a new release that you haven't gotten to. Like I'm not like super big on trying to keep up with new releases, but I did buy this book and I have not read it yet and I would like to. And I think it was Eyes on Indie or Sarah, I think in a recent-ish video she talked about this because she was talking about like UK published indie books from the Republic of Consciousness Prize, and this obviously was shortlisted. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was shortlisted. And yeah, she really enjoyed it. And I do want to read it, I just haven't been getting to it. So I say all the time. I think the biggest disappointment this year was, I mean, I definitely hated The Portrait of a Lady the most, I would say. But I don't think that was a disappointment in the sense that I really thought I was going to absolutely adore it. But I did think I wouldn't hate it. But I don't think it was a disappointment still. I think probably it was maybe Private Rights by Julia Armfield, which wasn't like a terrible book, but it just wasn't particularly great, I felt. And I think, you know, sometimes I just get hooked into the like joy of like the queer people around me or like online, you know, who like love her work. And yeah, there's always something in her work that I like, but it's not completely for me. And I definitely felt quite disappointed, I guess, in terms of especially I think the ending of that novel. So yeah, I would say Private Rights probably. Biggest surprise I also found kind of hard to decide. I kind of was thinking could be When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit, in the sense that I was surprised that at how much I enjoyed it and how much I thought it was a good book, but at the same time I don't think that I thought it was going to be bad, so, or like not that great. I just guess I felt more struck by it than I maybe thought I would, but I don't really know if I want that to be my answer. I just can't really think of anything else that sort of fits, which again, like I don't think I've had a particularly great reading year. I'm not like, I don't really know. I think, you know, I'm tired and I am a PhD student and I'm trying my best, and that's sort of why it's happening like this. Most beautiful book you've got so far this year? I think like, I don't know. I don't feel like I've made majorly beautiful purchases. However, I do think these, which I showed, which are some of the pamphlets from Strangers Press that I got at the beginning of the year and have read, I do think these are very like beautifully published. Perhaps Milena Ecstatic the most, by Bae Suwa. But I also sort of, I don't know, that feels like an incomplete answer. I did recently get The Juniper Tree by Barbara Comans in this NYRB Classics edition, which, sorry, the lighting is maybe not helping, but I think has a nice cover. I don't think it's like especially beautiful, although I do really like it. And I definitely want to read this soon. Yeah, I think that's sort of my answer. And then, yeah, for this, I kind of wanted to talk about like how my yearly goals are doing, which I think generally is not great. I had some goals, like I think I made a video right at the beginning of this year, maybe, about my 2024 and 2025 goals. So like reflecting on how I had done with the 2024 ones and then making some new ones. And I don't know that I've like particularly, yeah, been keeping up with those. There were ones where I wanted to read specific authors, and I have managed to do 2 of those, both of them men, which kind of sucked, but it's because it was, one of them was Henry James and the other was Thomas Hardy, and I read a Thomas Hardy book in June, yeah. I still haven't read a like Yiddish woman authored book. Hopefully that's gonna happen. I also haven't been doing great with reading French books, although I have read one, I believe, but not one that was on my shelves before. It was one of the ones that was shortlisted for the Republic of Consciousness Prize at the beginning of this year. So I still have most of those that I want to read still. I am doing like okay with some of my other goals, One of them is to read a book from every decade between 1880 and 1980, and I would say I'm doing pretty well with that. I did pick out some specific books, and I haven't been doing so well at those specific choices, but I have read books from the 1880s. I've read The Henry James and also The Mayor of Casterbridge by Hardy. Those were 1880s books. I read books from the 1890s, which was Liza of Lambeth. I've also read another one. Oh, and did I read two more? Anyway, I've read another one called Husband and Brother by Catherine St. John Conway. I've read a book from the 1900s, but not the ones I chose yet, which was Sultana's Dream by Begum Rokeya. I read Homage to Catalonia, which is from the 1930s. Mammal, What Are We Called Now by Jacqueline Mesnil Amar. That's the book from 1950. I think it was 1957 is when it was originally published. Oh, and it's also actually, that is another French book I read. So I have read two, and one of them was on my TBR for a really long period of time. So that is a little bit better than, than I thought I was doing. I have read something from the 1970s. That was When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. That was from 1971, I think. I did also try to read Dictee by Teresa Ha-Kyung Cha, which is from the 1980s. I would like to read something else, especially because I didn't finish that. But yeah, so I would say that's sort of, like 6 to 7 out of 10, which I think is good. I would like to read the ones that I picked out, specifically the French ones I picked out, which are for the 1900s. But yeah, it could be worse. Another thing I've been doing fairly well at, I would say, is reading books from my shelves from before 2025. I think I've read, my aim was between 30 and 40%, and I think I've read 16 out of 39, although actually, yeah, maybe I shouldn't count. Maybe it's slightly different than that, because that I think does include the books I've read in July. But yeah, we'll say 14 out of 36 or something, which I think will be around the same. So that's probably slightly less than 40, but 16 out of 39 is about 40%. So I think I'm doing pretty well here, and between 35 and 40% is really great. And I'm happy to be making that progress. And yeah, that's great. I just want to keep going with that focus. Another book, that's not right. Another question from the mid-year book free cat tag is what books do you have to read by the end of the year? So that's what I'm going to talk about now. So I will start with these two French books that I really would like to read. This is A Woman's Affair by Liane de Pougy. It's on my summer TBR, so I did talk about it recently, and it's translated by Graham Anderson. And then this is Claudine at School by Colette, who's translated by Antonia White. This is the first in a series, and yeah, I really just want to read this, yeah, what more can be said? But at least then, if I read these two, then I would feel like I've made more progress on my French, my French reading project this year. Then I have, I think, maybe 3 other French books that I'd like to read. I also have these 2 books, which I'd like to read, which are more like PhD books to get to. I did start reading this the other day on the bus home because I didn't have anything else to read. But this is A Girl Among the Anarchists by Isabel Meredith, who's actually not Isabel Meredith, it's actually Helen and Olivia Rossetti. Yeah, I think this will be really interesting, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. And then this is Miss Nobody by Ethel Carney. I've definitely talked about this before also, but this also is on my list for 1910s, like a book to read from it, because it was published in 1913, so that would also be great for that, and maybe that can motivate me more than that it's for my PhD. I don't think so, it'll be fine. I'm actually doing trying to read for a really long time in the day challenge at the moment, and this is one of the books that I'm going to try and read during that time, so hopefully I will get to that. Another book that I really want to read, which I also put on my summer TBR, is Near to the Wild Heart by Clarice Lispector, translated by Alice. Okay, let's try that again. Translated by Alison Entrekin. Those are a few that I had to hand. I also am going to be trying to do something for Virago season, which is reading Virago books during Virgo season. So I want to read at least one of those, and I have a few to choose from. I kind of think I'm going to go for My Cousin Rachel, but I could also go for the Angela Carter I have, which is Shadow Dance, or I could try Far Cry from Kensington by Muriel Spark, because last year I read a Muriel Spark in Virago season, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know, I've got some options, so that's great. And then I think also from the list of authors that I talked about in that 2024-2025 video, I'd really like to try to read a book by Gina Apostol, which I will have to buy, but that's okay. I would love to own her books. I think she's fantastic, at least from the one book of hers I read, but it was really so fucking great, like and I just would love to read more of her work. So she's a definite that I really want to try and get to. And then also hopefully maybe a Helena Yayemi book, because I love her also. I think, is it really only one book of hers that I've read, or maybe I've read two? No, I think it's only one, and like I just adored it so much. I should really read more. So yeah, I also might just reread that one first and then I don't know, but we'll see. So those are the two that I kind of picked out as like I'm trying to get to in the latter part of this year. I think those are the end of the book questions. Another question I'm adding into this like mid-year check-in generally is like, what are the best films that you've watched this year? Because I just wanted to talk about them briefly. So the first is Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which I honestly think is so underrated. I thought it was just this like wonderful, sweet exploration of growing up and also religion in a way that like I feel like nobody talked about it as such, and I just like loved it so much. And I'd really recommend it. I think it's like really beautifully sort of brought to life too from this like sort of 1970s world, and like yeah, I just really would recommend it so much. And I think it's really lovely the way that like growing up and like girls growing up is like taken seriously. And I also was really like surprised by the discussion about religion too, which maybe I shouldn't have been from the title, but from the way people talked about it, there was no like hint that the book or the story was going to kind of engage with basically what it's like to try and develop your own relationship to your family's religion and or like a sense of the divine or God, whatever you want to say. And so I really like the space that it carved out for that and for the like experimentation of that. And like the grandma, like there's a Jewish grandma in this, and like at one point Margaret, she was like, can we go to shul, grandma? And like the grandma is so excited and happy that she was asked that, and it's just so sweet. So that's the first one. The second one is a 1990s classic, which is what they also call me, which is called Muriel's Wedding, which everybody knows about. And basically my friend watched this film and really loved it, and then she was talking to me about it, and I was like, oh, that is the film that my mum was watching the night of my birth, like just before she was going into labor with me. And I've always been like, I obviously should watch it because that's kind of like, I don't know, some kind of prophecy. And then when I watched it, I was like, this is a prophecy about my life. Or at least there felt like there were lots of very specific resonances. But it's also just a really fantastic and sweet film, and like it's so good. Like I really want to rewatch it. I was also thinking maybe for my 30th birthday I should have my friends over and force them to watch all my favourite films, which would definitely include Muriel's Wedding. I think I might try and do something like that. It would be nice. Okay, I will stop there. Definitely let me know how your reading is going, if you've read anything that I talked about here, or if you're interested in doing so, and how you're doing in terms of your goals for the year. I hope you're doing better than me, although I don't think I'm doing terribly. I'm just not doing like that great, but I never am. Yeah, I think that's everything I had to say. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye!